Vampires versus the Cure, Part 2. Here we'll be discussing Apo, Cleo, Avid and Drift's reaction and opinion on the Cure, if they're willing to take it if given the choice, and their relationships with the humans versus the vampires. Starting off with Apo. For Apo, they on the town side versus the vampire side. Again, vampires being the coven. I'm just calling them the vampire side, even though there are vampires in the town side, because those seem like that side seems very pro vampire, whereas the vampires on the town side, as you see, are all for the cure. So, Apo is very against vampirism. Well, I don't know if they're against vampirism, but they're against the vampires, specifically Scott and Owen. I think a lot of their hatred towards Scott is because he's pure evil, and because he turned there and is very manipulative in general. And Owen, because Owen very obviously has a hatred against
humans.
And I don't think she sees any possibility in redeeming Owen, because some people, Lagundo, I think might see possibility in redeeming Owen, whereas Apo doesn't. I don't think Apo sees a redemption for the two. Apo is very on the human side, even with her stint, like her spying on the vampire side. I think Scott might try to get his claws into her, into them, but I don't think that it's gonna work. I think they very much are for the cure, for the humans, because they were turned unwillingly, coerced by Scott, led there by Owen. I think they feel bad for Pyro, but I don't fully know what their feelings on Pyro are. But yeah, I think I think they definitely feel like Shelby is good, but Apo is for the cure, for the humans. Next up is Cleo. Cleo is very interesting. She seemed to know there was vampires in Oakhurst, and she grew up with a background where vampires aren't evil monsters like Avid grew up with. Or like Avid came into town with the mindset that all vampires are evil, all vampires are heartless creatures. Cleo obviously knew vampires were real, and like I think the implications, if it's not directly stated, I haven't watched all of Cleo's POV, I'm sorry. It was that Cleo's mother or descent or one of their ancestors were a vampire, from likely Oakhurst. Not likely, obviously Oakhurst. But so yeah, I think Cleo grew up with a non-judgmental view of vampires, and I think they do believe that Owen can be redeemed if Owen chooses to. I don't fully know their thoughts on Scott. I think they recognize that Scott is a threat. Like Avid in the latest episode, I'll talk more about Avid when we get to Avid, but he seems to be thinking that Scott is less of the main bad guy because of Scott's manipulation, and that Owen is more of the main bad guy because Owen's very lack of like charm and lack of trying to make it seem like he's friendly. Whereas Cleo, I think Cleo can recognize Scott's manipulation.
Adding an addendum here, because I've watched some of Cleo's POV afterwards, I don't know if Cleo is fully imperceptible to Scott's manipulation, which fair, who is, but because basically they say something like Scott's not all bad or something, and seem to like Scott hasn't hurt anyone. I think when Scott was in town they said that, but I'm not fully certain on that. So I'm not I think they might believe in Scott's good guy persona a little bit, and they I'm not fully certain though, and I think if they talk to Legs more and Pyro more, they might feel less certain of that. But yeah, they don't fully believe that Scott is the worst guy, because they also talk about how the castle is open to them and to Drift.
But because Cleo was turned by Pyro, I think that if they were given the option of the cure, but that meant killing Pyro because it was... Oh, let me explain cure versus hierarchy. I explained that in my first video, but also people who click on this might not watch my first video. So when I say chain, I mean that every vampire that has sired another vampire has to be killed to cure the vampire. Like for Cleo, Pyro would have to be killed. For Shelby, Pyro would have to be killed. It's kind of just those who have, for Avid, Shelby would have to be killed. Whereas hierarchy, when I say hierarchy, is shorthand for only Scott would have to be killed to cure all the people below Scott. So I think if it was Chain, then I don't know if Cleo would go for the cure, because I don't know if they would be down with killing Pyro to cure them. So yeah, that's why I'm gonna put Cleo at a maybe, because we don't know if it's gonna be Chain or Hierarchy. So if it's whereas Pyro is at a maybe depending on Scott, Cleo is at a maybe depending on if it is Chain or Hierarchy. So it's different kinds of maybes, but still a maybe nonetheless. Cleo is definitely a maybe. Cleo is also really interesting. I forgot to mention that like Cleo I think is strongly on the human side, but is on the side of humans that does believe that vampires can be redeemed and that vampires aren't heartless. I don't think there's anyone currently in town that thinks vampires are heartless beings that cannot be redeemed or helped or saved. Because I think most towns behind helping Pyro and helping Shelby while leaving Scott and Owen to the rest to dust. Whereas some people also think of redeeming Owen, and then some people think that Owen is the main bad guy and Scott is okay. I think Cleo is on the side of vampires can be redeemed. Conversation with Shelby and Appo, and actually I don't think Appo was there. It was Shelby, Pearl, and Drift, and them. So yeah, I think a lot of that Cleo said that Cleo said something about Owen being a monster, but he didn't have to be, I think. I don't remember the exact line, but I think definitely they think I think that means that they think Owen has a chance of redemption, but only if he like owns up to like the horrible things he's done. But I don't think they will fight for an Owen redemption. Laguna might try to save Owen, but I don't think Cleo would. Um, because Owen has showed himself to be like a threat and like not a good guy. But yeah, that's where I think Cleo stands with the vampires to human scale and on the cure scale. Next up is Avid. He is a freak slash positive. Um, I love him slash negative, but there's something wrong with him, and he this is not a video about Avid, but I could do a video about Avid, but I'm not going to for now. This is a video about vampires and the cure. And Avid, as of Ep 5, spoilers, is a vampire. If you haven't watched Ep 5, I don't know why you're watching this, because I've given a lot of spoilers already, but yeah, shockingly, he turned into a vampire. I guess. I know. I was honestly surprised, because I did not think Avid was going to become a vampire. But yeah, he seems to be very much on the human side, where he thinks I think he's less of the opinion that vampires are heartless creatures. He does seem to be on the like vampires, like the humans, sorry, town side. He doesn't seem to be admitting to anyone that he is a vampire.
Adding another addendum here because of Avid's what's it called, thumbnail for episode 6. I actually think he might go to the vampire side. I mean, because of the whole, I think probably because of the whole dead weight comment and stuff. But I'm really interested to see how that plays out. So I'm not fully sure on everything I've said here based on how episode 6 goes out. But yeah, I do think there's a chance Avid sticks with town, and there's a chance that Avid goes to the vampire side. I think the vampire side is looking more likely, but yeah.
Which is very interesting with everyone else coming out that they were in that whole town meeting and stuff. But yeah, it's very interesting Avid's relationship with vampirism, because from the get-go he was loudly screaming about vampires and loudly screaming about how they can't be trusted. But he seems, now that like his friends have been turned, like Pyro, I don't know, he wasn't super friends with Pyro, but I think he is on the camp that Pyro can be redeemed. But like Shelby in particularly, because he and Shelby were good friends before Shelby was turned, which was in episode like 3. So like they weren't like super close, but for Avid, who had no friends, clung to Drift and Shelby kind of immediately. So I think Avid is conflicted to say the least about vampires given his past history with Elle and what happened with all of that. But he definitely does. I think again this is a similar situation with Cleo. If the cure involved killing Shelby, I don't know how behind it he would be, but I think in general he would be for the cure, because he came into this whole he came into vampirism being like, it's okay, vampirism is gonna cure me temporarily until I can be cured by the cure and go back to being a human. So I think if it is hierarchy, without a doubt, he will take the cure. I mean, he also seems to be a bit in the camp that Scott isn't an evil bad guy because of Scott's manipulation and charisma and blah blah blah. I'll talk about Scott more in the Scott video because I'm obsessed with that man. I think I mentioned that already, but yeah. Scott, yeah, sorry, Avid. Avid, okay, like because Shelby was the one to turn him. If it's Chain, I'm gonna be so interested to see like how Avid reacts to the news that it's Chain, because he went to Shelby to turn him into vampirism. So if he finds out that it's his actions that got him, that either means that Shelby has to die or he's gonna be a vampire forever. That's gonna be so yummy. I'm so excited to see what happens in episode 6 and 7 and 8, and I hope the series goes on forever. Whatever. Yeah, Avid for the cure, unless it's Chain, then I don't fully know what his reaction is going to be, but I'm thinking he might not be as for the cure if it's Chain, whereas if it's hierarchy, he definitely is for the cure. Yeah, he's on like the reason I'm putting him at a yes and not a maybe, even though it is depending on if cure is Chain or hierarchy, is because of how much hatred he had to vampires coming in, and like his whole reason he turned into a vampire is because he believed there was a cure. So I think he really is for the cure and for being cured. But the only exception is if it is um the only exception is if it is Chain. Whereas Cleo, I think, would take a cure. They didn't want to be turned, but they also didn't have as strong a hatred for vampires that Avid came into Oakhurst with. I think, yeah, that's all I have to say about Avid. So next, on to Drift.
I've only watched Drift's episode 5 POV as of now. I do want to go back and watch the other ones, but I don't have the time for that right now. When I do plan on finishing her POV. But with the end of her episode 5, she did seem to be contemplating going to the castle, and she does seem to be like enjoying the powers of being a vampire. Like she and Cleo talked about getting to level 3 as vampires now that everyone in town knows that they're vampires. So she doesn't seem to like completely hate being a vampire. She did seem like upset at being turned against her will and stuff, which makes sense. Like you wouldn't want something like that forced. You wouldn't want it forced on you. But it also seems like she's making the best out of a bad situation, kind of like how Shelby accepted it. Like Shelby was forced against her will. Shelby was upset about being turned, but she liked being a vampire itself. And I feel like there's a lot of parallels between Shelby and Drift in that aspect. So I feel like it's not completely like I feel like Drift's alliances might be able to flip depending on maybe Scott manipulation and also Shelby, like just genuine Shelby, like wanting to hang out and stuff. Because Drift does seem really friendly with Shelby, and now that Drift's a vampire, they might not be so like afraid to hang out with Shelby. I don't know if they were ever afraid, but Shelby might be less afraid to hang out with them because Shelby did seem afraid when the three of them, Drift, Pearl and Cleo, went to talk to them by the lake tower, I think, like beacon, I think it is. But Drift, I put a tick mark on the screen. This recording is done after the video, but yeah, Drift I do think would accept the cure. I did think that when I originally recorded this, given their hesitance to like be a vampire, and also they seemed scared of Scott and Owen, but they seemed less scared of Scott after his talk with the town in the town. But they definitely seemed scared of Owen and like the vampires in general. But I don't fully know if they would take the cure after watching their POV. So I'm putting them at a maybe, because they could. I feel like they could go either way. I think they're probably going to stick to town side because they have more friends in town, and town doesn't seem like against vampires as that much. So I think Drift, depending on episode 6, and I'd be really interested to see what happens with episode 6. Maybe I'll come back here and edit all of these after episode 6. But for right now, she doesn't seem too adverse to being a vampire, but she also doesn't seem too adverse to being human again. And I think she would be against killing Scott. Like, I don't know if she is for killing, but maybe if if Scott's layers of manipulation and villainy was peeled back, maybe she definitely would be more down with killing him, but she doesn't seem super down for killing people in general. So I don't know if she would accept the cure, but I don't think she would reject being given the cure, if that makes sense. So yeah, basically, I think Drift is someone who could go either way, leaning towards Town. I'm putting them at a maybe. Even it says it's a. I'll edit it to say it's a maybe and not a tick mark. But I think they could go either way. I'm really excited to see how episode 6 plays out, especially for a lot of the town vampires because of Owen declaring war and stuff. But yeah, I don't know if I have a lot more to say. So
Recap of part 2. Apo is definitely for the cure, being turned by Scott and everything. So it doesn't matter if it's a chain or a hierarchy. Cleo is a maybe, depending on if it's a chain or hierarchy, because I don't know if they're going to root for Pyro's death to cure them. Avid is a yes, with the exception of if it is chain. I don't know how he would react if it's chain and that meant Shelby had to die. I'm gonna hope he doesn't want Shelby to die to cure him, but I don't know much. I don't know enough about his character to decide that. Drift is a
Drift is also a maybe because of if it's chain or hierarchy, and if they're down with killing Scott or not. Also, if they for some reason turn out the vampire side, which is true for all of these, but I think it's less likely with Apo and with Cleo. So yeah. Hi, it's me, editing Venka here, because that's the name I decided to go with. I hope you liked that video. If you didn't, tell me why, I guess. Why are you watching if you didn't like it? I don't know. Like and subscribe. I'm doing YouTuber things because that's what I am. Yay, yippee. If you made it all the way to the end, thanks. I don't really know how to do an outro, but this is my attempt, so just roll with it, okay? Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want. More videos to come. I'm going to do an episode 6 video once it comes out. I'll probably be a little bit late on that, but then, yeah. I also have other video ideas, but if you have anything you want to hear talked about, let me know.